It's
Hello,
just
everyone.
yours. Sorry.
Today is March 5th, 2018. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes CSI Implementation Group. Let's jump straight to the agenda. I copied over the PRs that need attention and bugs from the last time. I believe these issues have been resolved, but we can go over them one more time just to make sure. So, Sergey, you want to give an update on the current status of Go CSI versus CSI test?
All right. Based on Andrew's response, we understood that he is not going to split mock driver for us from the Go CSI. So we just kind of made a copy of mock portion and started working on kind of fine tuning it. And so that's work in progress.
Okay. And then for the bugs that we were tracking for the external provisioner, these have been resolved, correct? This is the host path plugin having its own special ID and then opening persistent volumes if it gets restarted.
Yeah, that one is fixed.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and remove that. Are there any other bugs folks are tracking at the moment?
Yes, there is one new one which was discovered by one of the guys on the Slack channel using the E2E test.
Okay.
And so it's an external provisioner. I'm planning to open that bug. Basically, I do have a fix already. I just need to file it and send the PR.
Okay. If you can, just go ahead and put a link in here when you get the chance.
Okay.
Just for visibility. Cool. So then, any other updates anybody wants to give? Okay. We can run through the task list very quickly and keep this meeting short then. For moving Kubernetes components to CSI 0.2, I submitted a handful of PRs that Sergey took a look at, and we merged last week to move to the 0.2 tag for driver registrar, CSI test, external provisioner, external attacher. I believe all four of those were merged. I need to check. And finally, for the Kubernetes repo, Sergey submitted a PR, and I LGTM'd it and assigned Thokin to review the external components, and that has also merged. So that means we are pointing to the 0.2 tag officially everywhere. And I think we are okay resolving this issue now. One thing I did notice while I was going through these was that we don't necessarily always point to a specific version, or sometimes we're pointing to head for some of these dependencies. For example, API machinery. So I moved that to the beta version, and we should come back and move that to the official Kubernetes 1.10 after 1.10 is cut. So basically, after Kubernetes 1.10 is cut, we can rep this and then make sure that we're just, we're pointing to a release version instead of a beta version. That seems pretty minor, so we're green there. I did not get a chance to look at the kubelet device plugin mechanism. I don't know if Vlad's on the line. Vlad, did you get a chance to look at this at all?
No, I did not, Saad. Actually,
Okay.
I'm looking for the PR so I can start looking at it right now.
Yeah, no big deal. I think we'll just track it for next quarter then. Feel free to go and take a look at it and make sure that what's being done isn't...
Can you point to it again?
It's this orange one.
Okay.
Yeah, feel free to take a look at it and make sure that what's proposed there is not completely unworkable for us.
Okay.
And then we'll take this as an issue next quarter to make sure we drive to conclusion.
Okay.
The rest of these items look green. End-to-end test. Did the end-to-end tests get enabled, Luis? Or does anybody else know? It looks like Luis may not be here. Okay, we'll follow up with Luis offline then. I'd really like to see these tests start running. I believe the only thing that needs to be done is to remove the feature : from the test, and that'll force them to start running. If anybody else wants to take this on while Luis is out, feel free to pick it up. Otherwise, we'll wait for Luis to come back and do that.
There is still, sorry to interrupt. There is still a tiny issue with the end-to-end test.
Okay.
So it's not green yet, and I'm looking into it to see why it's failing.
Got it. Okay, cool. Feel free to open any issues and add them to the bug section above if you find anything. Cool. I think everything else here for the entry stuff we're done with. Now the focus is on the external components. So for the external components, we have branch versioning for external components. This has been open for a while. I think this will be the last thing that we do for this quarter. Is once the external components are in the state that we want them in, then we should cut the 0.2 branch for each one of them. We can do that at the end, closer to release. Update the external components for 0.2. So this should be mostly done with the work that Sergey's done, and then with my PRs pointing to the new 0.2 tag. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this green. Is that correct, Sergey?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Cool. Next up is documentation for 0.2. We're depending on Luis for this at the moment. I think Luis was asking for volunteers to help here. Is anybody interested in helping write documentation or update the existing documentation? Come on, guys, documentation's fun. All right, I'll see if I can dig up other people to help with this. We'll currently mark that as red. Test for externals. Sorry, what was that?
Is that a P0 for the documentation?
Yeah, documentation is going to be P0. So there's multiple different places we have documentation. It's Kubernetes CSI doc inside GitHub, and then there is the documentation. Somewhere is it? Right here. The user-facing documentation, and in fact, that should also be P0. Just to make sure that people can actually use this thing and actually create volume plugins and that kind of thing.
So are you talking new documentation or just?
No, it's just updating the existing documentation to make sure that any changes that we've made for beta are reflected in that documentation and accurate.
Because the last sentence you said about make sure people know how to build this stuff, or at least how to use it. I don't know if we have documentation.
Yeah, I think that might be an area that we're deficient in. So I guess there's two goals. One is to make sure that any existing documentation is fully updated to reflect beta, and two would be to extend that documentation to, for example, have how do I write a volume driver and how do I deploy it? I think that's a big critical piece, and since we want folks to start writing volume drivers with beta, that would be important to get in. Maybe we could break that into two pieces. So let's say update documentation for beta /CSI 2.0.2, and then extend, we can make this a P1, extend documentation to show how to write a new driver plugin for KS, and this would be in the same place. And this would be to update. Okay. So that's, I'm going to mark all three as red for now until we have folks actively working on them. Other than that, the two other big things are testing. And let's see here. Docs, actually, we already have docs to write new. And it was assigned to Chakri. I'm just going to change the priority on that then. Then we've got testing, plugin deployment should hook into Kubernetes liveness probe. That's pretty low pri. I don't know if Pietro, doesn't look like Pietro's on the line for an update there. And then finally, I think the existing CSI drivers need to be updated. I think a lot of the work done here was by Chakri and his team last quarter. Is anybody from his team on the line? No. Is anybody interested in helping out with this? I know there was like an NFS volume plugin and a handful of others that we had. Is anybody interested in updating those to align with the current version?
They are partially updated.
Okay.
I mean, if you're talking about the documentation, then no. But if you talk about the code, then they are partially updated. And I'm using host path plugin a lot for all the end-to-end tests and everything.
Okay.
So basically, it's more like to test them and see if there are any issues introduced by switching to 0 to 0.
So mostly updated already. So needs to be tested. And documentation needs to be updated. Okay. And maybe we could create a list here of the ones that need to be tested. You mentioned host path, NFS. And we could just create the whole list here. Is anyone interested in helping out with that at the moment? Okay, we will keep that red for now until that gets assigned. That's pretty much it. So documentation, testing are the two big pieces that are left. And then we should be done. I think that's all I have for this meeting today. Anything anybody wants to talk about?
What is the deadline for getting the driver updated?
I'd like that to happen by the time the release happens, which is going to be later, end of this month. So if all the drivers, when we cut the 1.10 release of Kubernetes, are updated to work with 0.2, Kubernetes 1.10 is going to be compatible with 0.2. That would be a very, very nice experience, rather than have people go to this website and see that some of the drivers are not yet compatible and need to be updated.
I can try host path.
Okay.
No, sorry, host path. I'm working on it, and
okay.
yeah, it's already there.
Would you be interested in checking out the NFS one, Shane?
NFS. Okay. Yeah.
Up to you. No pressure.
So at the circuit, right? What's the status of your work on host path? Because if you have already made some changes, maybe I can take a look at those.
Exactly. So there is a PR which updates CSI common to be compatible with the 0 to 0 change and the host path. Okay. So you can build on top of that PR. It's in the drivers repo, and I think the PR ID is 56 or 54, something like that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, maybe take a look at the host path one, and then if you become more comfortable looking at these drivers, you can pick up some of the other ones if you're interested.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. All right, sounds good. Anything else? I think one thing I want to make sure we discuss is the release deadlines. Let's take a look at SIG release. Go to releases 1.10, and there should be the schedule in here. So code freeze is going to be lifted on the 14th, and then 1.10 is planned for the 21st. So March 21 is kind of our deadline. Let's keep that in mind and make sure we test everything and catch any bugs that we have, basically, and update documentation until then. All right, folks. Thank you very much for your time. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.